Hello and welcome back to Compiler Programming. Today I wanted to work on an experimental feature that I think might be useful and might substitute some of the existing stuff that we already have, but be sort of more flexible and better integrate with the rest of the language, because right now there is this interesting situation where I have this syntax stuff which is more like a preprocessor of the language. I mean, yes, it is way more powerful than what you have in C, and it is more safe in terms of scopes and so on and so forth, but it is a preprocessor. And as such, it is very unclear how something like this would integrate with the rest of the system. So after thinking about it for a long time, I, at least for things like break and continue and maybe something like this, I think I have a better solution, and then we'll see what can be done with things like for. It might be that I will just change the syntax of this and turn it into something different, and this is how it would go, because right now, if this wasn't like if there would be braces around here, something like this, so if I would require doing like for and then like this, including braces like in C, then this is something already that can be done probably without the need for the syntax blocks. I haven't tried it, but maybe I will after this today's work is done. Anyway, so what I want to do today is try to replace this break and continue with something else. And the idea is that instead of this stuff being defined a sort of inline piece of code, I would like to have a compile time function, or including inline one, that will return something that when treated as a statement would produce what I want. I know it might sound a bit confusing, so let me just write maybe a test and then we'll see what I mean. Obviously, test will be something simpler than what I have there, but it should illustrate what we need to do. Deleted the loops. Let's actually put it somewhere, well, somewhere right here. That it seems about right. Okay, and what I would say is should be able to let's start with code fragment. If you programmed with on the web in DOM or in React or something like this, you probably know about fragments. Basically, if you have a tree in a document, then if you want to insert a list of something or something like this, then you would like to have a fragment. In this sense, this would be like a block in C, so something like these curly braces, but something that can be injected in the right position, including multiple times. So it's in a sense it's a macro that just doesn't need any arguments, and yeah, it's an inline macro definition that doesn't need any arguments. Maybe that would be the best way to think about it. Well, I would say we have, let's say we do this. We say expansion or test expansion, and we need to somehow, so I can't just use curly braces here. We need to designate that this is something that should not be used right away as a value instead of escape. At some point I think I implemented something like slash to turn it into a value, which is the thing used inside the compiler to represent all the things, including tokens. But in this case, we don't need it to be a value, we need it to be a very particular type such that we can recognize it later and do something about it. So I think I will use tilde. In C, tilde is used for bit negation, but to be honest, bit negation is not something that is used too often. I mean, it obviously depends on the code, but I would say that I don't want to use one of the keys on the keyboard, an operator that is not that often used, and instead I would like to point it to metaprogramming. But maybe I'll change this choice. Right now I like how this looks like. I think it is can be very representative of what this does. Maybe we should do this. This kind of makes sense, maybe. So we'll have this squiggly arrow, and that would mean that this is an expansion. And right now we'll do the simple thing. We'll just say that it's an expansion. Right. The only thing is the expansion. I'm just kind of thinking if I want to allow it to be used in here or not, like as an expression, or should it only be a statement? That is a very interesting question. So maybe what I want to do is put it in here. So let's first turn this into something that we can work with better. Okay, so I have a function. It returns an S64. And one of the interesting questions in here would be about the scoping of all of these. So if I move this into here, and let's say that I have also a definition of something like x is 21. The question is, can I access x here? And the answer probably is no, because x is a runtime value. So if x is something like this, then I probably should be able to access the x. Otherwise, I shouldn't be. This is definitely something to think about. I don't think it changes much in terms of the initial implementation or this idea, but that's something for me to think about and consider when I clean up this feature after the video. For now, let's do the following test. So in here, I would say that I just return 21. We have this test expansion. We can move it out so we don't think about all this stuff regarding scopes. And here I would say return 42. Maybe I don't even need this. No, let's keep the braces. I kind of like the braces. So now if I do test expansion, maybe I need to call it statement. Expansion, I don't know. That's better. The point is, or the idea is that if I do something like this, then I should be able to just inject whatever is in these braces into here without an extra scope. So this is just inline code that would be there. Okay, now the interesting part of all of this is with regards to semicolons, like how is this treated? But let's just take it one step at a time. Okay, we have this expansion, and should be able to handle state expansion statement, or let's call it fragment. Since I already called it an explanation, let's call it fragment. Test fragment. Fragment. Okay. Cool. So we expect this code to return 42 because the idea is, yes, by default it will return 21, but it will never actually reach 21. Instead, it will expand to return 42 in the same scope, and it will just do that. Okay. That is definitely enough talking. Let's try to run the test. This should obviously fail. It doesn't know the operator. It doesn't know anything about all of these. So let's just start working on that. Okay. Yes, this would be the test that fails. Right? And now we can start the work. First, we would need to define an operator, I guess. So yeah, these are the operators I was talking about, reflection, verification. I think I will honestly remove them. Sometimes you add something to a language and you think it's a good idea, but then you realize that it wasn't actually. Maybe what I'm doing today also will fall into this category, and that's perfectly fine. I deliberately don't write a lot of code in this language and just like add tiny bits here and there because there is still lots of stuff I'm trying to figure out. And the more code I will have in the language, and so that the more rigid it will become. So it's an interesting balance. On one hand, you don't want to write stuff in language because you want to know how it feels. On the other hand, you definitely don't want to constrain yourself. So maybe what I should do is to like throw away tests that I run, and if they become too unstable to continue, I will just remove them. I don't know. I'll need to think about this. It also might be a fun project to just try to write a bigger program in the language and see just how it feels and what is missing. Okay, anyway, getting back to this stuff. I think with the same precedence as the // it's a prefix operator. Yes, this would be this arrow. Argument count 1, yes. Mass handle fragment. That seems fine. So we search for handle reflect operator. So I can copy this code. Static value star fragment, and let's just take all of these, put it over to here, and let's see what we have. So we have this stuff, and now we need to, for now I'll just assert that source value descriptor or value is group of source value, and then I will assert that value. Let's do it this way. Group star group is value as group, and then here to do user error. Usually after these videos I just go through and write nice error messages, and here I want it to be a curly brace, right? So it's fine. We'll do the user error. That's okay. I probably could use this juxtaposition or whatever empty space operator that I added in one of the previous videos. I'll think about it. For now, that's not really important. Okay. Maybe I should write this comment. Did you consider using empty space operator instead? That does not change what we're actually doing. So let's consider what this actually needs to be. I think what I can do is I can... That's actually very interesting, because right now statements, they sort of don't return anything, and then we try to parse it as an expression, and once we parse it as an expression, we just consider that to be done. Right, so that is an interesting question, what these should actually return. I can try to either shoehorn an existing type, or I can add something new. Let's first add something new, and then if that is not a good way to handle this, then we will just, change it to something better. For now, it doesn't really matter where I put it, I guess. Well, here seems about right. I will call it Fragment, or code fragment, and this thing will just contain a pointer to a group, maybe const pointer, regular pointer, const pointer, doesn't really matter. Let's just say it's a const pointer to the group. So const group, okay. Now we will create one of these. So we'll say code fragment. That's a pointer. Let's allocate one. And then let's assign a group to it. And this will be group is group. Maybe group is a bad name. Actually, I will say children. Maybe it would be a better way to deal with this. So it's also like this, array value pointer, children. Yeah, that's better. And then we say children is a group. Children. Okay, now obviously we need to return it here. We'll say code fragment, storage static, and fragment. And we will say that that's a code. Actually, I don't think I need this. Descriptor needs to change, obviously, to also say that that's a code fragment. And the source range seems fine. Allocator, okay, yeah. We can do value make, to be honest. And then this turns into a context, and maybe we can, let's keep it like this. Does that build? No, yeah, right, because this is not this, this is a value view. Okay, that at least builds. I think that would even, the test should now run. So it should parse the expression, we should get the correct operator, but what should happen is we will get incorrect result. So I expect that we will get 21 because this will be treated just as an expression, and nothing will happen. Right. So at this point, I probably will need to decide about the scopes of all of this. Whether I want this to also capture this scope. Let's say I do. So I'll just say scope star. Scope, it's pretty easy to capture, and I can decide if what I will do with it. Okay, so we captured the scope, everything is fine. All right, it still builds, I hope. And let's try to run. So we should see fail tests that says 21. Yeah, okay. That is exactly what I expected to happen. We are building just fine, but obviously we're not doing anything with this stuff. So now we need to be able to do that. Right. For that, we'll need to go to parse block view, I guess. Yes, that is the right function indeed. And here we need to think how this will exactly work out. I'm trying to do this, yeah, I'm trying to parse the statement, and if I parse the expression and then I push the expression. Okay. Right, I think in here, what I need to do is I need to say if value is parse result tag is what is or not tag, descriptor is descriptor code fragment. And let's actually, I'd probably go into here, to be honest. Yeah, that seems right. Parse result descriptor, yes, and parse result storage tag is storage tag static. This is a pretty common pattern, so maybe I will want to somehow encapsulate this, but we'll see. Okay, so if we have one of those, so what do? Well, we just sort of recursively call this stuff, maybe, right? So we say parse result is token parse block view. Did you consider changing the scope? So that's something I need to think about. Context, and then right here I need to say, I already forgot, do I generate these things? No, I don't. At some point I thought about generating automatic casts for all the generate types. Maybe I should still do that. For now I can do it manually. I can say that const code fragment is storage static sc type. Here we say parse something like this, and then we say fragment and children. Okay, that builds. I think that actually might be all we need to do for the basic functionality, to be honest. Yeah, I think that that's it. Let's see. Well, no. So, right. This is my mistake. It's good that I have this assertion, otherwise it would be a very long debugging session. But this is a very unsafe function. I'm not sure how to make it safer, to be honest, in C. Maybe I need to rethink some stuff, but that's not connected to what we're doing right now. Right, here, yeah, so as you can see, this was pretty straightforward. I probably forgot a bunch of stuff that needs to be done, but I think this is very sort of very intuitive now, in a sense, right? And that you can now call. So imagine that there was some kind of a function here, and this function was a compile time function. Then you could very easily return one of these in that function, and you would be able to inject sort of bits into the output without resolving to kind of syntax stuff. So now that this works, let's see that I haven't broken anything else. Maybe I did. Okay, let's actually commit this, I guess. RG episode /d plus. Right, so that would be episode 173. So that's 174. Git commit -m episode 174. And here we say code initial code fragment support. Right. And what I wanted to do with this, let's see if it actually works. And this is where we will need to figure out the scoping rules for all of this, is where when I try to make this stuff work. So first, without the scoping rules, we can turn debugger into this stuff. And then goto is not, I cannot really do this to goto just yet, I think. I need to check if I can match on the exact symbols. And this is a different functionality, but debugger should actually work. Obviously, I'm not using it much, so we'll need to test it separately. But let's just run tests. I don't think anything will happen, but that's fine. Now I will go to to fixtures and then fixbus, and we'll try to add debugger statement here and see if this still works. I think we should pause in our tests and get in the debugger, but let's see. Apparently that did exactly nothing, which is not great. Let me make sure that this would even do anything. So build mass minus run fixtures fixbus. Okay, yeah. So it was just that in tests, debugger statement doesn't really work, which is something I need to think about. But here debugger is working just fine. I don't have any commands, but that's a separate topic. We'll definitely need to work on improving debugger a bunch. Okay, so debugger works. That is great. And now it's time to go for the more complicated part of this, which is supporting for break. And the only reason it's more complicated is because we are dealing with labels. So this label essentially is just a regular, like inside the scope, it's just a regular variable that has a very particular type. So this will all end up being just about this scoping rules that are in play here. Since I'm defining it here, it might just work, to be honest. Yeah, I think this just will work. So maybe I don't need to do anything else with that. Let's see. Run the test. Yeah, okay. Well, perfect. I mean, that turned out to be way simpler than I thought. And as you can see, for one, this is way nicer to look at in terms of definition. And it should be possible to generate these things programmatically as well. Now, one thing I would like to do later maybe is to make this easy to generate programmatically as well, but that is something for another day. So I guess this will be a short video. I did what I wanted to do. I turned out to be, just whatever, 20 lines of code altogether, I guess. But that is pretty nice. I'm happy that this worked out. I think I will continue working in this direction of sort of replacing things that used to be statements with things that are just values. In essence, you can consider this as being sort of an abstract syntax tree, but with a bit of a twist. Yeah, I hope you've seen something interesting in this video, and see you in the next one. Goodbye.